Bring Me the Horizon. I never really got into metalcore or deathcore. Throughout the period of its ascension, I was listening to largely electronic music. So, as a kind of genre, it completely passed me by. Not to say that I avoided it, I just never actively chose to listen to it. Bring Me the Horizon are, one of the pioneers, I guess you could say, of metalcore and deathcore. It was a name that I heard around, but never really dove too deep into it. I was aware that they were very popular. I was just, I don't know. It felt like it wasn't of my generation or whatever, so I just never decided to tag along for it. The first time I heard Bring Me the Horizon, or at least the first time I consciously was aware that I listened to Bring Me the Horizon, I was working in this bar in Spain, and it had a jukebox with literally all music ever on it, it seemed. You could find anything on there: country and western, pop music, dubstep, hip-hop, metal, literally everything. And occasionally it would just go on shuffle mode if no one had put any money into it. And one of the bands that was on there that caught my ear, because I didn't know them, was Bring Me the Horizon. I'd go around, come out from the bar, go look at the jukebox and go, oh, it's Bring Me the Horizon again. Okay, interesting. But it still didn't drag me in for some reason. I can't really explain why. So they just passed me by. But this album converted me into a fan of Bring Me the Horizon. But I should specify a fan of their later career stuff. I heard Posthuman, Next Gen, or I heard a few singles from it. I think specifically Dark Side made me go, oh, this sounds like my kind of thing. I didn't know this is what Bring Me the Horizon were up to. And I don't even know how I came across it. I liked it a lot, and it was kind of an earworm. I kept needing to listen to it, and so it made me really like it. It was a really well written, yet very simple song. But basically, I finally came around to getting the album and checking it out, and I was not disappointed. I think a lot of the opinions that I've seen banded around online is that it's unoriginal, it's a mess, the track list is all over the place, it just sounds like they're copying a bunch of different bands, and I can see those criticisms. But that doesn't make me dislike it, because of the variety on here. It never gets boring, it never gets repetitive, and that is, I will confess, that is something that I found with the earlier mid-career music. Sempiternal, the album, I've tried diving into that album numerous times because I know it's very popular, and it's, most Bring Me the Horizon fans would regard that as their best album, I think. And so I'm like, okay, I'll check that out. And it just, every time, I don't think I ever make it to the end of the album. And it's not to say it's bad, it's just very, very samey to my ears, okay? And Posthuman Next Gen was the complete opposite of that. Like, the first time I heard it all the way through, I was like, what the hell is going to come next? I've genuinely no idea. And it's exciting when I get that feeling, because it's very rare these days. A lot of bands seem to pigeonhole themselves for one reason or another. Even bands that I'm into. If it's a new Korn album, I basically know what to expect at this point. And I'm okay with that because I'm a diehard Korn fan, but that's just an example. But this album really, it goes in all manner of different weird and wonderful directions. And all really well produced songs, really to my taste. There's a real nice blend of metal and electronic on here, which I think might irritate some people. For me, I'm totally cool with that. So, cutting a long story short, I wasn't a Bring Me the Horizon fan for a long time. And now I am, with the stipulation that it's basically their last 3 releases, being Next Gen, Ammo, and Posthuman Survival Horror. Those 3 releases to me are really, really good. And from what I understand that a lot of Bring Me the Horizon fans are kind of out at this point because they left their deathcore, metalcore roots or whatever, which I can understand. In the grand scheme of Bring Me the Horizon fans, I'm probably one of the weird ones that only likes their later stuff. That's fine, I'm okay with that. Because I think it is genuinely really, really good and creative and interesting and dynamic and varied, which is largely lost. Particularly, like I said, particularly metalcore and deathcore bands. To me, a lot of them just sound very, very similar. And for me, you can take 10 songs by different deathcore bands, put them on the same album, or like on a playlist that would make up an album, and tell me that it's one artist, and I'd be like, yep, okay, yeah, I believe that, because it's very samey. But this album really is not. Full disclosure, this album, it's currently the 28th of January 2025. This was my album of the year of 2024. And I'm not even a Bring Me the Horizon fan. And it was a shock to me for a band that I'm not even a fan of to release an album that becomes my album of the year. That's never ever happened to me before. And again, it's not to say that I was a fan because I dislike them. It's just because they never gripped me. It's different to that, you know? So I love this album. Some standout tracks would be Limousine, Dark Side, Amen. Hope you have fun. Oh, brilliant. The last couple of tracks on the album, Die For You and Dig It, I could leave those off the album, personally. They're not what I look for in music, let's just put it that way, politely. It's very strange for me. Amen is very strange because it contains Lil Uzi Vert, who to me is a SoundCloud rapper, and essentially anyone with Lil in their name to me is a talentless hack of a musician.
All them niggas sound the same.
And so to have him on a track that I think is one of the best tracks on one of my favorite albums in recent memory is shocking to me. But again, it's a very small contribution on the song, so that's probably why. The song N.A.
Thinking I should drop dead, eat shit, go to hell. I could jump head first out the window.
Is one of my favorite songs. I feel like it's quite divisive among people who enjoy this album, but I think it's really good. It's not terribly original. Yes, it sounds like Feeder. If you just put it in a vacuum of this album, it adds such a variety to everything. I think Lost is really good, and Lost is incredibly like emo. And I hate emo. Short aside, but emo back in the day ruined my friend's taste in music. In the early 2000s, it was new metal all the time, Slipknot, Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Deftones, etc. And then overnight, it seemed, everyone went from wearing baggy jeans and having like spiky hair or like bright red hair or something to having like a swooping fringe thing and tight jeans and listening to My Chemical Romance. Like overnight. I'm like, what's happened to my friend group? Why am I the only one that's still like committed to the bit of new metal? And it pissed me off, man. Really did. Because it just seemed like whiny, miserable, girly shit that I had no interest in. And so, yeah, Lost is of that sound, but yet I still like it. It's mind-boggling, this album, to me, honestly. Overall, I do kind of respect Bring Me the Horizon from being able to go from this to this to this. I love it when bands have an evolution and not just like a more refined version of themselves. That's good. That's obviously what you want. But when a band can completely shift from one thing into another, it doesn't always work, mind. But when I think it works, I find it very impressive. For example, Rammstein are one of my favorite bands ever. They haven't really changed in the last 30 years. They started off with one sound and they basically still have that sound And that's fine. I like that, because I don't really want Rammstein to change their sound, and it'd be very strange if they did. But when a band starts off as, I think this is the thing. When a band starts off as a genre of music that I don't like, and then over their career they morph and shift into something that I do like, that's really cool. It's probably selfish of me, because I'm like, they've decided to make music that I like. And of course, why wouldn't I be cool with that? But it's very impressive. It shows a diversity in what a band can do. I think that's really cool. And this album really shows that. It shows so many different things that they can do. There's no deathcore on here whatsoever. It's kind of metalcore in parts, but there's like emo, there's new metal, there's like pop punk, there's like a instrumental hip hop, modern hip hop beat. There's like the song, probably can't say the word, but the track 14 is like a jungle drum and bass, like hardcore thing. Why is that on here? I don't have a problem with it at all, because that's exactly my kind of music. But it just shows like how you can go from making abject noise to electronic music and stuff that sounds like Feeder. It's bizarre to me. Like I said, it's my album of the year last year. I still go back to it frequently. One reason I think that this album landed at the right time for me is my cat. I had to have my cat put down last year, and it was around the time that I started listening to this album, and so I was very upset at the time, still am, honestly. And this album helped me through that grieving stage, because there's a lot of emotional lyrics and but still hopeful lyrics. It would be unpleasant and unlistenable if it just reminded me of that period of time, but it doesn't. But it came to me at a time when I needed something like this, I think, is what I'm saying. I didn't want anything too angry for once. I needed something a little more like sort of somber and introspective, but still energetic. And this album nailed how I was feeling at the time. And it also gave me some, like real... I mean, if you've ever lost a cat, but I was so upset around that time and going through some other unrelated mental health struggles at the time. And the song N.A. really, like, spoke to me. Because I'm in therapy, I have been for a long time, and I'm like, wow, this is me like every Tuesday morning. So yeah, it's incredibly relatable in some ways. Not to go into too much detail, but around this time, and for the preceding like year or so, I've been having, and still have, like an ongoing complete disconnect with a very close family member who we don't speak anymore. And they are essentially dead to me. And so the song Amen and Rip. Those two back to back, like I just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So going between those two songs is very cathartic for me, because it makes me feel like I'm not just having these unique, bitter, family-related experiences. Like,
I hope you have fun.
I actually hope you have fun rotting in hell. I know, I'm a terrible person, but you don't know my story all the way, so don't judge me. I feel like I could talk for 7 hours about this album, honestly. And I didn't want to do a long, deep dive review on this, partly because it's a new album for me. As is Bring Me the Horizon, and I want to do those videos on albums that I know really, really well. I don't have to do any research, I can just start talking and go. This is kind of relatively off the bat kind of experience with this album. So I'm not going to be diving into the songs individually, but Bring Me the Horizon fans, let me know what your view is on this album, because as a non Bring Me the Horizon fan, I love this album. I think it is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I can leave off Die For You and Dig It. The other 14 songs are absolutely brilliant. I think the mess of a track listing works in its favor because it keeps it interesting and never gets boring and never gets repetitive, unlike a lot of their other music from 10 years before, in my opinion. After listening to this, I went back to Ammo and Survival Horror and was like, wow, what have I been missing out on all this time? This is really good, and I am very curious to see what they come out with next. Yeah, not much really more to say. I love this album. I am now Bring Me the Horizon fan. I didn't think I ever would be. Let me know your thoughts on the album, and if you think I'm incredibly wrong for not enjoying their earlier to mid-career music. Maybe you think I'm a fake Bring Me the Horizon fan, which, to be honest, I probably am, because I haven't been for a long time. This is a very recent thing for me. But yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. And I still haven't thought of how to end videos yet, so I'm going to say, go away.